Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 5:54 a.m. East Coast time, and we got an 8-game MLB slate to break down today. It is Thursday, August 15th, and there's also an NFL slate tonight. There will be an NFL video out, and before we get into it, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Sal Vetri. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, MLB, and WNBA. Today, there's only MLB, there's only NFL. Very excited. Linked up above, titled up above, and linked down below is my NFL course. More and more people are having fun in it. One, giving me good feedback, which is, my most nervous thing before getting any feedback are people actually getting value from this? I thought they would, and now they get verification that they are. You can check that out, linked down below, everything for that. Link down below is also Patreon. Going to be releasing something for the NFL later today, as well as the MLB in terms of a podcast and or an article for breaking down the slates a little bit more closer to lock, exactly what I'm doing, exactly who I think is rising, the cream of the crop, rising to the top of the coffee, whatever you want to call it, and seeing who is the best plays, in my opinion, at that point, and reasons why. More analysis, further, deeper analysis as a lock approaches when we get more lineups. So, thank you. I appreciate it. We are about to hit 6,100 subscribers. I imagine we're going to plow through that with the NFL on the slate with this MLB game. Nice slate as well. So thank you all so much. Thank you to all the subscribers. It is fantastic what we can do here. Your support is amazing. And I'm excited to announce a lot of awesome things that are in the works coming the NFL season really shortly. Within the next week or two, there's some things to announce. So thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already part of the community. Get down below. Get the free PDFs down below. Get everything up and learning for your WNBA, NBA, NFL, all that link down below to help. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And for now, let us get right into this video. So 8-game slate, and it's disgusting. The pitching on this slate is disgusting. I just tweeted there are 16 pitchers on this slate, and none of the starting pitchers have a SIERA of 5 or above. If you're not familiar here, anything at 4.5 or above, I start to worry. 5 or above means they're a bad pitcher. SIERA is a better indicator than the ERA. Now, out of these 16 pitchers, one of them is a pitcher opener in Chad Green. So pretty much 9 of the 15 pitchers you're choosing from are bad pitchers, really bad pitchers in terms of their SIERA. 5 or above, which is just mind-blowing to me that there's that many on this slate. Now, maybe 1 to 2 have smaller samples, but for the most part, they're bad. One of those guys with the 5 or above SIERA, I believe, is now a different pitcher, which is too early maybe to tell, but we'll get into him. He's one of my interests today. I picked 5 guys today. It's disgusting, though. I think this is a slate where, I say this sometimes, if you're entering max lineups, you have the luxury in quotes, of picking a couple of these guys down below and getting just small percentages of each of them so that you kind of have exposure to whichever one scores 15 fantasy points. Whereas if you're entering 1 to 3 to 5 lineups like I usually do, and I'm not somebody who enters 150, been pretty transparent with that, it becomes a lot harder, and you have to really analyze some things. So we'll be doing that right now. We'll be doing that later in the article a little bit more. So that's all linked down below once again. So starting it off, Sonny Gray, 9,100 is my first interest. Look, he's by far, in my opinion, the best pitcher on the slate, and it doesn't really get close. Best real-life pitcher, Marcus Stroman's probably next in line, but in terms of best fantasy, best real-life pitcher on the slate, it's Sonny Gray, and it's kind of by a wide margin for me. He's a 166 favorite today. He's the second biggest favorite on the slate. He's going up against St. Louis. He has the best SIERA at 3.97. He only gives up 0.92 home runs per 9. That's the second best on the slate, only behind Marcus Stroman. 53.3% ground ball rate, 30.3% fly ball rate. Those two are in the top 3 on the slate, only behind Marcus Stroman pretty much for being the first one. But then this is where he kind of exceeds Marcus Stroman, and why Marcus Stroman isn't that great of a fantasy pitcher most times out is because Sonny Gray strikes out 27.9% of batters. That is the highest strikeout rate on the slate if you exclude Chad Green, who's just going to be an opener today, which I definitely would if I was you. 28.3% against lefties is a virtual tie for the highest on the slate, with Andrew Heaney. 27.5 against righties is second only to Yu Darvish. So overall, he has the second best strikeout rate on the slate. I think I said best earlier. The second best strikeout on the slate behind Yu Darvish, and it's by less than 1 point. You're saving $600 off of Darvish. I believe Sonny Gray is a much better pitcher than Yu Darvish, indicated by home run per 9. Indicated by grab ball percentage, fly ball percentage. And also just power. Yu Darvish gives up a ton of power to lefties. There'll be about 3 lefties in the Philly lineup tonight, whereas Sonny Gray, a 113 ISO to lefties, a 136 ISO to righties. Now you get St. Louis, whose numbers are going to be skewed since the start of June because they now have Matt Carpenter and Ozuna back. So really they're 4 and 6 hitters as of late in this lineup. Carpenter will sometimes bat first, but it seems like Dexter Fowler has taken over that role. But you get the 4 and 6 hitters back into this lineup who are good, powerful bats who are going to be difficult outs but it still doesn't worry me that much. So the numbers are skewed, but still to go over them, they only have a 154 ISO since the start of June. That's second worst on this slate. It's one of the bottom 5 in the league since the start of June against righties, and they do strike out 24.3% of the time. Now, I imagine that power number comes up a little bit with Ozuna back and Carpenter, more so Ozuna than Carpenter, but the strikeout stuff with Ozuna, more so again than Carpenter, is also going to stabilize and or go up. So the matchup is just great, $9,100. There's no 10K pitches on this slate. Honestly, Sonny Gray should be $10,000 plus on this slate today, just due to the fact that he is by far the best pitcher in my opinion. The fact that Mike Fiers is more expensive than him against Houston. One, the matchup for Mike Fiers is by far the worst on the slate. Look at this right here over to the right. Everything is in red for Houston. That means they're a really damn good team. Since the start of June against righties, they have a 211 ISO. That's top 5 on the slate. They don't strike out at all against righties. 18.7 is the lowest on the slate. Not even that. Mike Fiers has a 5.22 Sierra. That's absolute dog shit. And he only strikes out 16.6% of batters. So I don't know how Fiers is 9,500. No interest in him. Sonny Gray at 9,100 is my first interest on the slate. I imagine he becomes one of the most popular pitchers on the slate for good reason. Andrew Heaney, number 2, right there, same exact price point. Instead of 9,100, Heaney's 9,000. So there's a lot of worries with Heaney, but a lot of that's going to be filtered out from 1, the matchup, and 2, his strikeout upside in this matchup, which allows you to kind of reduce some of your other fears. So the White Sox, though, and this is important to point out, similar to how I was trying to point this out with Clayton Kershaw in Miami a few days ago, and also yesterday, but more so a few days ago when there's viable pivots to Kershaw, in my opinion. Andrew Heaney at $9,000, he's facing the White Sox. The White Sox, if Andrew Heaney was a righty, would be just a disgusting matchup, like a terrible. They're a 122 ISO since the start of June, 26.4% strikeout rate. By far the worst team in terms of power since the start of June against righties, and pretty much right there as the worst team with Texas in terms of how much they strike out. But Andrew Heaney is a lefty, and they're a much better against lefties. A 176 ISO, they strike out 23.6% of the time. Now, that's not great, but they're not the White Sox at that point, right? They're not this putrid team that you're comparing to their right-handed splits or their splits against righties. They're a much better team. They profile out just like the St. Louis Cardinals do against lefties. Same exact strikeout rate, same exact overall same exact strikeout rate, same exact overall power rating. They profile the exact same way as the Phillies do. So when you look at this team as the White Sox, you can't look at them overall. You have to break down into the splits. Now, the splits are going to be smaller sample with lefties, so there's some argument there that they would become much worse if they played more and more lefties, which I think that's fine. But right now, against lefties, they profile out as the exact same team in terms of strikeout rate and ISO as the Philadelphia Phillies, as the St. Louis Cardinals, even as the San Francisco Giants. They profile out as the exact same team as the Chicago Cubs, believe it or not. Those 4 teams, I would say the Phillies, the Cubs, if Andrew Heaney was facing them, you would have much less interest. So I do have interest in Heaney today because he has a 27.4% strikeout rate, the 3rd highest on the slate, and he's priced as the 4th most expensive guy at $4,000. Still, I mean, even though we're talking about the White Sox being much better against lefties, a 176 ISO is still below average. 23.6 strikeout rate is still favorable, especially for a guy in Heaney who does have 27.4% strikeout rate overall. But then there's some problems with Heaney, right? He gives up a 48.5%, by far the highest on the slate, one of the highest in the league's hard hit percentage, 33.3%. Ground ball rate is his 3rd lowest on the slate, and then his fly ball rate is the highest. So he's giving up the most fly balls, the most hard hit percentage, which is worrisome. That's why he has a 1.63 home runs per 9. But again, he's a 178 favorite, and he has strikeout stuff against a bad team. Just keep in mind, and this is why I have much more interest in Sonny Gray today, because he's going to profile out and look good against the White Sox if you look at their season stats, if you look at their breaks since June. But you have to be looking at also their splits against lefties. Their splits against lefties make them pretty much the Philadelphia Phillies, pretty much the Chicago Cubs, the St. Louis Cardinals, the exact same types of numbers. So keep that in mind as well. A couple other things just quickly to note if you're still watching this. I will have an NFL video out today. This one's probably going to go up by around 7 a.m. The NFL one will probably come out by 8 or 9 a.m. So just keep that in mind. Those are my first 2 interests today. I don't have any interest in Julio Teheran or Marcus Stroman. I think Stroman's a fantastic real-life pitcher. But overall, I don't have any really interest in... Whoops. All this stuff keeps popping up my electric bill. Don't have any interest really in Stroman just due to the fact that he's facing Atlanta, which is a very scary ballpark. Stroman limits home runs, 0.73 home runs per 9. Incredible ground ball pitcher, incredible fly ball pitcher, the best on the slate in those 2 departments, and by a decent margin. Gives up no power, strikes out 22.5% of batters. But he's facing Atlanta, who has a 218 ISO since the start of June. Against righties, that's the top 3 on the slate. They don't strike out that often against righties. It's just a matchup where, yeah, Stroman can have a good start here. He can go 6 innings, but generate 3 strikeouts, not do too much for you, give up a run or 2. He's too priced up for that at $8,400. I don't think he's an overpriced pitcher. I just think due to his real life to fantasy life splits, like he's just not going to get me there more often than I need him to. And then I don't have any interest in $8,600 Julio Teheran, where really nothing stands out to me. A 5.07 Sierra, 40% ground ball rate's not great, 21.5% strikeout rate against both sides of the plate. The Mets don't strike out at all since the start of June, 21.1%. That's the fourth lowest on this slate against righties. They have a 192 ISO, which is one of the better ones on the slate as well. So nothing stands out for there. My third interest is going to be Alex Young. And I say this very tentatively that Alex Young is my third interest. Look, I want to give 5 interests today just to see where I'm at in the middle of the day and go off of that, look into more things, come back to you with the podcast later and give you a final analysis an hour and a half to 2 hours before lock. Make sure if you do want to get that type of analysis, link down below on Patreon. But Alex Young at 8,100. Out of my 5 interests, he's probably the guy I get to the least, and that's saying something based on who else I'm interested in. But San Francisco against lefties is a little bit worse. They strike out around 23% of the time. They have a 175 ISO, so not a great team overall. But Alex Young doesn't have that much strikeout stuff, right? The San Francisco Giants striking out 23% of the time is around an average strikeout matchup. He has 20.8% strikeout rate. Doesn't give up hard hit contact, which is good. Does have a does give up hard hit contact. I was looking at Ronaldo Lopez, 41.5%, which isn't great. 1.1 home runs per 9, though. It seems like he's going to actually regress upwards for that, which isn't that good. 4.85 Sierra. 4.85 Sierra on a big normal slate, I would say it's bad. But on this slate, it's literally like a top 6 Sierra, which is just absolutely mind-boggling to me. That's how many bad pitchers are on the slate. So what you're looking at in Young here is a guy who has a beneficial matchup. He's not pitching in San Francisco, though. He's pitching in Arizona. A beneficial matchup. He's probably, the line isn't out yet, probably going to be a small favorite. At $8,100, I have some interest. But again, if you're choosing between him and Sonny Gray for some reason, find the $1,000 and get up to Sonny Gray. Him and Andrew Heaney, I think it's much closer. I think it's much closer than people think because the White Sox against lefties and the San Francisco Giants against lefties profile out very similarly. The Giants have a slightly worse overall power index. They also strike out a little bit less, so it's pretty much a toss-up at that point. I'd probably still go Andrew Heaney just due to the fact that he has much more strikeout stuff, a higher strikeout ceiling. So Alex Young's going to be a third wishy-washy type pick for me today just because he's very meh and he has a very meh opponent. And the fact that this slate is just filled with garbage pitchers, it makes him rise a little bit for me, at least has some sort of interest. Fourth interest is Aaron Sanchez, and I actually have a lot of interest here. Sanchez has now made 2 starts with the Houston Astros since going there. Garrett Cole, they kind of worked with Garrett Cole when they acquired him, doing some different types of spin, using more spin type pitches and spin work on his pitches to kind of create deception, to kind of create a difference between his pitches, become more a more strikeout pitcher, right? A higher strikeout pitcher. Garrett Cole is now the best strikeout pitcher in the league, arguably. I think he probably is. And now Aaron Sanchez, since he's been there, has been working with Cole, been working with the pitching staff, doing the same thing. I'm not saying it is already translated for him to be Garrett Cole, but Sanchez in his first 2 starts in Houston has looked great, and now he's always going to continue to be a decent-sized favorite. His team gets to go up against Mike Fiers, and Mike Fiers is 5.22 Sierra today. So I like Sanchez at 7,700. I don't care that the price point's coming up because on this slate you're about to see everything else below 7,000 is just absolutely garbage. So Sanchez seems like the one guy outside of Sonny Gray. Like those 2 early on seem like a pairing that seems to be the best today. I'm not sure if it'll be the most popular, but I do like the matchup against Oakland. Oakland against lefties is fantastic since the start of June. Against righties, they're a little bit worse. They only strike out 18.5% of the time versus lefties, but Sanchez is a righty. 23.7% is favorable for Sanchez. They have a 213 ISO since the start of June against lefties. That would be the 4th highest on the slate, but only a 196 ISO versus righties. So 196 is definitely above average. This isn't an easy matchup in Oakland, but there is strikeout upside, and it's not one of the top tier ones on the slate. The 196 ISO for Oakland would be coming in as the 7th highest on the slate out of 16 teams. So right around average for the slate. I do like Aaron Sanchez quite a bit today. And then my final interest is Drew Smyly, which is disgusting. Look, I'm trying to give you an interest below 7,000. If I had to kind of label this in and think of where I'll be later today, I'd probably say don't touch anything below 7,000. Like, let's look at the rest. Derek Rodriguez has had 1 decent start in the majors. You're lucky if you get 3 innings out of him. I don't want to pitch him against a San Francisco team or an Arizona team that doesn't strike out and has power upside. So I don't want to get there. I know he's 4,800. He can be maybe worth a dart later today, depending on what we want to do with our stacks. But no, Chad Green is going to be the pitcher opener. Cortez Jr., everybody gets hyped up because Cortez Jr. for the Yankees, and I'm a Yankee fan, is going to come in and pitch 5 innings. No, he's not. He pitched 3 days ago, 35 pitches. The last time that he was on, or Chad Green was the opener 3 days ago, everybody was like, oh, Cortez Jr. is this hidden value at $4,000. No, he wasn't. He pitched 2 innings, didn't even get a probable lone relief effort, got 7.5 fantasy points in those 2 innings, so at $4,000 it actually paid off, but was extremely lucky. I wouldn't be going back to Cortez Jr. He's in line today for 35 pitches at most, and that's if he's pitching well, right? Dominant. If not, if he gives up a run or two, he's coming right out of the game. So no interest there in the Yankees pitchers today against Cleveland. Michael Wacha against Cincinnati. I imagine people will flock here because he's 5,400 and there's not much on the slate. They'd recognize the name in Michael Wacha. Michael Wacha has been a garbage pitcher. 5.26 SIERA, a 2.12 home run per nine is the third highest on the slate, but don't make that sound like it's not bad. Third highest in the slate at 2.12. It just means that there's much worse pitchers on the slate. One of them that I just said, Drew Smyly, which is scary. Wacha's been terrible. 261 ISO to righties, 216 to lefties. I much prefer the Cincinnati bats. Pluko against the Yankees, I'd rather not. I'd rather not even think about that one. 5.44 SIERA, 2.34 home run per nine. The Yankees are the best stack on the slate today. Pluko only strikes out 14.5% of bats, 277 ISO against righties. It's probably not even close. I don't know if that's definite yet for me, Yankees, but check back in the article later. Pedro Payano against Minnesota. Small sample for this guy, but I'm not targeting him against the best power hitting team in the league. And they just absolutely crushed both sides of the plate, lefties and righties. So you're left with Drew Smyly below $7,000. If I had to give you a quick and dirty answer, don't go below $7,000 today. Focus on anything above it. Pair Sonny Gray with Andrew Heaney, go cheap at bats. Pair Sonny Gray with Sanchez or Young, go cheap at bats or mid-range, or try and get some expensive backs in a really low stack. I'm just saying, trying to dig at Drew Smyly, his 5.17 SIERA is actually average on the slate, which is just telling you how disgusting the slate is. But a 12% walk percentage, 2.76 home runs per nine, those are disgusting numbers. The only reason I have some sort of interest in him is one, the lack of options. So there's a couple of reasons. The lack of options on this slate, and he's below $7,000. And number two, the Cubs are actually really bad against lefties. 24.3% strikeout rate since the start of June against lefties. That's a third highest on the slate. And they have a significant drop-off in power. 198 ISO against lefties, or against righties since the start of June. 171 against lefties. That's the lowest on the slate. So since the start of June against lefties, the Cubs have, on this slate, out of these 16 teams, the lowest power rating. Yes, the Cubs. So, I mean, the Cubs all year have been pretty, don't want to say pedestrian. They've definitely been above pedestrian. In terms of striking out, they've been pedestrian. In terms of overall power, they've been right around average, maybe slightly above it, like 14th out of the 30 teams. So it's a positive matchup for Smyly in terms of everything should be working in his favor. Now, he's not a strikeout pitcher by any means. He does strike out 22.9% of righties, which is good to see. Only 19.4% of lefties. And then all the bad stuff comes in, right? 46.2% hard hit percentage, 2.76 home runs per nine, 12% walk percentage, 31.3% ground ball rate. All of these numbers are either the worst on the slate or the second worst on the slate. He's a terrible pitcher with a good matchup, and he's cheap. So he's the option below $7,000 that I get to compared to the rest. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be getting to him much, or if at all. So just recapping this 8-game slate: Sonny Gray, Andrew Heaney, Alex Young, Aaron Sanchez, and Drew Smyly are the 5 interests early on, 13 hours before lock. I'll get back to these later on today in the podcast and let you know where I'm ending up. Again, it's a disgusting slate. 9 out of the 15 starters, and I'm going to exclude Chad Green because he'll pitch an inning. I was going to say a quarter, but an inning. 9 out of these 15 pitchers have a SIERA of a 5 or above. One of them has a 1 that I didn't mention has a 4.85 SIERA. I mean, that terrible pitching on the slate. Stick to the good, talented pitchers today. There's a lot of bad pitchers in bad spots. Don't get there. I'll talk about the hitting later on today in the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at @SalvetriDFS for updates. Check out the NFL course. It's linked down below. You can click it, see what you see what's in there, see if it's for you. Also, check out the Patreon, link down below if you are interested in seeing my podcast or hearing my podcast later today and potentially seeing NFL articles /podcasts moving forward. Thank you so much. My name's Sal. Hit the subscribe button. Peace out, gang.